The ad said learn to bake sourdough in the Vermont countryside, and I booked it on a Tuesday night with 2 glasses of wine in me and a box of tissues on the couch and Marcus's key still sitting on my kitchen counter because I hadn't figured out what to do with it yet. I almost canceled 4 times. I didn't cancel. The farmhouse smelled like wood smoke and yeast before I even got my bag through the door. 5 other strangers were already milling around the long pine table in the kitchen, a retired couple from Portland, 2 college roommates on a nostalgia trip, a quiet man named Gerald who said only that his therapist recommended it, and then the instructors came in from the back, and one of them was him. Tall, flower already on his forearm at 10 in the morning. The kind of calm that isn't performed, that just lives in someone. His name was Eli. His co-instructor, a brisk woman named Priya, handled the science. Eli apparently handled everything else. Bread is slow, he said, by way of introduction. Everything we do this weekend is going to feel like waiting. That's the point. I wrote it in my notebook like I was going to need to remember it. The first lesson was the dough. Priya explained hydration ratios and fermentation. Windows while Eli walked the table, pausing at each of us, adjusting without announcing. When he got to me, he stood just behind my left shoulder and watched my hands for a moment. You're fighting it, he said. I'm needing it. Those are different things. He set his hands over mine on no preamble. No may one, just the warm weight of them. And somehow that was fine. That was exactly fine and showed me the motion. Push away with the heel of the palm, quarter turn, fold, push, turn, fold. Slow and deliberate, like a conversation you're not rushing to finish. Feel that. I felt that. He moved on to Gerald. I kept the rhythm he'd put in my hands and tried to look like someone who needs bread all the time and is completely unaffected by things. The first rise took 2 hours. People dispersed and the Portland couple took a walk. The roommates played cards. Gerald read. Priya went to prep the afternoon's flower order. I ended up on the porch with my coffee and my notebook and the particular kind of loneliness that follows you even to Vermont, even to farmhouses that smell like wood smoke. Eli came out with his own coffee and didn't ask if he could sit. Just did, in the other Adirondack chair, and looked at the hills. First time doing something like this? He asked, is it obvious? Only because you wrote down what I said about waiting. Most people just nod. I looked at my notebook. I'm a journalist. Old habit. What do you write about? Other people's lives, mostly. I turned the mug in my hands. Mine got a little boring. He glanced over at that. Not the pitying look I'd braced for. Something more like recognition. Bread's good for that, he said. It doesn't care what's going on with you. It just needs what it needs. We sat there until Priya called us back in. And I thought, I'm glad I didn't cancel. Day 2 was the shaping. And that's when it got harder to pretend. Eli was teaching us to read the dough when it was ready to shape. When it needed more time. You have to go by feel, he said. Not the clock. The clock will lie to you. He pressed 2 fingers into a test round to show us the indent. How it should spring back slowly, not snap. Then he came to mine, took my hand, and pressed my fingers into the surface himself, guiding the pressure, watching my face instead of the dough. There, he said, feel how it pushes back. The dough was warm. His hand was warmer. Yes, I said. He held my hand there a beat past useful, then let go. That night, everyone else went to bed early. The retreat schedule was physical in a way none of us had anticipated. All that standing, all that kneading. By 10 o'clock, the farmhouse was quiet. I couldn't sleep. I came downstairs to find Eli in the kitchen, alone, feeding the sourdough starter by the low light above the stove. He was in a worn flannel and bare feet, and he didn't startle when I appeared in the doorway. Starter needs attention every 12 hours, he said, by way of explanation. I know. I read the packet. Of course you did. I sat on the counter and watched him work. There was flour in his hair, and he didn't know it, and I didn't tell him. We talked about small things where I grew up, why he'd ended up in Vermont, whether Sourdough was actually worth all this. He said it was. I said I was reserving judgment. At some point, the conversation went quiet and comfortable, the way conversations do when you've known someone longer than 3 days, which we hadn't, which was strange. Why do you do this? I asked. The retreats. You could just bake. He thought about it seriously. The way I was learning, he thought about everything. People come here wanting to make something, he said, and they think that's the lesson. But what they actually learn is how to wait without ruining it, how to trust a process instead of controlling it. He glanced over. Most people need that more than they need bread. I thought about Marcus. About 5 years of trying to make something rise that never wanted to. Yeah, I said. They probably do. We stayed in that warm kitchen until midnight, talking and not talking, close enough that our shoulders touched. When we both reached for the same dish towel and neither of us moved away from it. The last morning was the bake. The loaves went in at 7. We waited. Priya explained the Maillard reaction. Gerald asked 3 excellent questions. I stood near the oven and tried not to think about leaving. When mine came out, Eli set it on the cooling rack himself and stood back to look at it. Good crust, he said. You're just saying that. I never just say that. He turned to me. Ask Priya. He doesn't. Priya confirmed from across the kitchen, not looking up. I waited until it was cool enough to handle, then broke it open the way he taught us of both thumbs at the score, pulling apart along the seam. The smell hit first, that deep yeasty warmth, and then the crumb opened up. All those small wild bubbles. And something about it, the weeks of waiting collapsed into this one moment. The thing I'd made with my own hands, turning out exactly right, broke me open a little. I started laughing first, then crying, which surprised me more than it surprised anyone else. The Portland woman patted my arm. Gerald nodded like he understood. Eli just looked at me, standing a few feet away with his arms crossed, and he was smiling not at the tears, but at something else, like he'd seen this before, and it never stopped meaning something to him. There it is, he said, quietly, just for me. After cleanup, people drifted out to their cars in 1s and 2s. I packed slowly. The farmhouse felt different now, smaller, warmer, like a place I'd miss. Eli was wrapping my loaf in paper when I came down with my bag. It'll keep 3 days, he said. After that, toast it. I know. I read the packet. He laughed. Actually laughed, real and unguarded, and I wanted to keep it. That sound. He held out the wrapped loaf. I took it, and his hand stayed around mine for a second, studying the package. Thank you, I said, for all of it. You did the work. You showed me how. He looked at me for a moment with the same attention he'd given the dough patient, unhurried, reading something he wanted to get right. Then he took a pen from his shirt pocket and wrote on the brown paper, just under the fold, in case you have questions about the starter, a number. His name, nothing else. I looked up at him. Starters can be temperamental, he said, especially in the first few weeks. I'll keep that in mind. I put the loaf under my arm and walked to my car. I didn't look back, but I heard the farmhouse door stay open longer than it needed to. On the drive home, the loaf on the passenger seat, the paper warm against my hand at every red light. I thought about what he'd said the first morning. Everything we do this weekend is going to feel like waiting. That's the point. I folded his number small when I got home, put it in the pocket of my coat, the Goodwill one I only wear when something matters. The starter is doing well. I think I'll call him.